Hi Sounders, it's Mick here to add a few thoughts about our Pompey nation before our minds turn to the big game on Sunday. It's been a terrible week without our men's team to watch. It's never a nice thing. It happens a few times, doesn't it, through the winter. Anyway, actually, before I begin, I just want to commend another podcast, someone else's podcast. You don't often get that, but we can do it on Pompey's Sound because we're big. We're big and we're bold and we're not afraid to mention other people's work. Jack Hancock produces a podcast. I don't know what it's called. I can't remember that. And he's the guy who's sometimes known as Hancock Analysis for the work that he does about Pompey's players, and he's terrific. He's a very, very bright young man and loves Pompey, and it's a nice podcast, and it's very personal at times, but it's also goes into analysis that I wouldn't dream of trying to do on Pompey Sound, but I enjoy listening to it. He's a good guy, and so's Josh Clements. I don't know too much about him, but I read him sometimes on X. And he gives out all sorts of useful information. For example, he did tell us this week that Pompey have added 634 championship appearances to the squad in this summer window. In other words, they've added that sort of experience to the squad they had. No wonder we're more hopeful. No wonder we feel we've got a more solid a gang of guys to take it on this season. 634 championship appearances added to the squad during the summer window, and another indication of what a good summer window it's been. But I'm going to dot around a little bit. I will come to the game with those down the road later on, but first off, a general issue, but a big one in terms of the football we watch and love. I'm regularly complaining on Pompey Sound about the unfairness of parachute payments. I honestly believe that they've got to end, and I think they will. Or at the very least, they'll be diminished in the next few seasons because they are patently, obviously wrong. Why continue to reward teams that are failing? And why try and keep them up when they should really be in fair competition with the likes of us? So here's another problem with the general infrastructure of football that I think deserves recognition. I think we should outlaw multi-club ownership, or even multi-club directors' presence in a club. It might not be fully owned by other clubs, but when club directors sit on the boards of more than one professional football club, that can't be right. Why does anyone need to own or be a director of more than one football club? Answer: to make more money, to manipulate the system to gain an advantage for one or all the clubs that you are involved in. It's not because you're a football fan, put it that way, Sounders. There are too many co-ownerships in football's top league. For example, a couple of years ago, Chelsea bought a French League One side, Strasbourg, and they now do dealings with Strasbourg. So they sold a player for £7.5 million, believe it or not, that no one will have heard of, or very few, unless you are a Chelsea fan. Isha Samuel-Smith, his name, is 19 years old. 33 days later, they brought him back to Chelsea for an unknown fee and were able to add £7.5 million to their profit and loss account, to manipulate that money between Strasbourg and Chelsea It can't be right, and it does gain an advantage for big clubs when they can do that, because there are limits to the amount that they can spend in a season depending on their profit and loss accounts. So it is wrong. It's quite wrong that clubs are allowed to own other clubs, or even that directors are allowed to work on the boards of more than one club, because it inevitably will create suspicion, and very likely that suspicion could be corruption. So why should it be allowed? Now then, a quick word about Chaplin, because I don't think that I've actually mentioned him and the wonderful return to Fratton Park of Conor Chaplin. He's such a popular guy. It's quite unbelievable, and it's because he's a very nice young man and a very generous man with his time. And I discovered, and you'll be aware, that he's popular in both camps. He's very popular in Ipswich as well, and that's a tribute to him, that he can be a popular success in both those clubs. And he's now, I see, being replaced at Ipswich by Akpom and Schmodix, so two big championship players in those two. Indeed, championship winners, I think they've both been. So that just gives me some hope that there may be some way of welcoming Conor Chaplin to our club in a more permanent way as the season rolls on. Of course, he may get recalled if luck would go against us. And presumably luck would go against Ipswich as well, because I'm sure they don't want to do that, but it may have to happen. But I think there is a real possibility that this guy, who's Pompey through and through, really, let's be honest about it, might be able to stay with his hometown club come the end of the season. We will see. Now, okay, so this brings me on a little bit to the Sunday game with those up the road, and I just want to talk for a moment about pyros. Pyros are illegal inside football stadia. In case you didn't know that, you should. Indeed, even possession en route to a game of pyrotechnic is an offence, and you can be prosecuted, and you can be given 3-year football banning orders, and some fans have been sent to jail for letting off fans or smoke bombs in stadia. I remember that awful time in Cardiff when a firework, a rocket was set off by one set of fans and hit a guy in another set of fans, and it was bad. And obviously that we don't want that. And I love the spectacle of pyrotechnics. This is my problem. I do love seeing the coloured smoke going up, and it's exciting in a crowd. It looks exciting, but it's not a good idea. It's dangerous, and it's imprisonable sounders, or at the very least it can create football banning orders. So it brings me on to Southampton Football Club, and you will all know, because everyone's been writing about it all week, that they've been desperately putting up posters, asking for noise from their fans. It's pathetic, really. It's very, very sad to see that sort of desperation when they're about to meet us, but because they know they're going to be outsung even in their own stadium. And but the thing about it, everyone knows about that, but what you may not have noticed is that in those very same posters, there were pictures of pyrotechnics being set off. When they were asking to create a huge and intimidating atmosphere at Sunday's game, the pictures were of fans brandishing flares. It's incredibly stupid. Not one, not two. There were at least 3 shots, I counted, of fans playing with red fireworks. It's all very well to plead to bring on the noise, but if you want to bring on jail, or if you want to bring on a banning order, then that's the way to do it, by advertising that sort of thing. I find it quite extraordinary that the authorities at Southampton were able to watch over that, preside over that. Presumably they'll say it was independent fans groups, and maybe it was, but it seems ludicrous to me. We move on, to something more Pompey and something of good news. I'm indebted to Mr. Cullen, who brought this up during the week. We made profits. We made profits on our sales this summer. I don't think they will be big profits, I have to admit. But we made profits on the sales of both Sadie and Lane and Towler. And that's a real milestone. It's so rare that this has been happening to us over the last decade. And it's we have to start being able to make profits from our trading. It will make all the difference in the future. And this is small beer. This is small stuff, I'm sure. And I don't think that Mr. Cullen would claim any differently. It's just the direction that he's drawing attention to. And okay, so I have to admit that obviously we didn't make a profit on Abdoulaye Kamara. There's no doubt that we lost money on him, but I think actually the money that we spent on him was vastly exaggerated. I don't know by whom at the time. I gather that it was a pretty small amount that we actually paid to get him to Fratton Park in the first place, and we will have lost that money, I admit. But in general terms, our trading is looking up, and in the Mousinho era, there'll be a lot more money coming back to us than goes out if the buys that he's made recently are anything to go by, because they're very promising young people who are already appreciating in value, and all of that's going to be good in the football market that we pursue as the seasons go on. So, Sounders, there's no doubt, is there? Things are improving. But seeing as we're about to play them down the road, and we're full of adrenaline, full of hope and fire to repair the damage of decades of their comparative success and our misgoverned inability to recapture the glories of our past, we should just remind ourselves we're in a process. Sounders, a brilliant one, led by Eisner, Cullen and Mousinho, but nonetheless an inevitably long-term process, given the depths we plumbed. So, near extinction, and now we're on our way. We're not there. We're a proper football club, fueled by the passion of fans and a city those down the road can only dream of and flounder in half-hearted desperation to copy, as we've already mentioned. But at this point in time, Realistically, Southampton's resources dwarf ours. Years of Premiership monies, years of parachute payments have seen them buy a football exterior we will struggle to break down. It will take a few more seasons of our inexorable progress to expose the soft, flabby underbelly and interior of Southampton football dreams. It'll come, but it won't, Sounders, be defined by the result of this encounter coming up on Sunday. I'm not going to predict a result for that. You know. I know you. You know me. How much we want us to win. But the odds at this stage of our progress are, not surprisingly, against us. But bring it on. We've got them worried. And momentum and history and blue blood are on our side. Play up, Pompey.